Well, greetings everyone. This is Samuel C. at Graph1159 on X and Blue Sky. That's at GRAPH1159. And so I'm continuing my video series on the Apostle Paul's Epistle of 1 Corinthians, and this video will be on chapter 10. For I do not want you to be ignorant, brethren, that our fathers all were under the cloud, and all passed through the sea, and all are baptized into Moses in the cloud, and in the sea, and all ate the same spiritual food, and all drank the same spiritual drink, for they drank of the spiritual rock which followed. Now the rock was Christ. But not in the majority of them does God delight, for they were strewn along in the wilderness. Now these things became types of us, for us not to be lusters after evil things, according as they lust, nor yet be becoming idolaters, according as some of them. Even as it is written, seated are the people to eat and drink, and they rise to sport. Nor yet may we be committing prostitution, according as some of them commit prostitution, and fall in one day 23,000. Nor yet may we be putting the Lord on trial, according as some of them put him on trial, and perished by serpents. Nor yet be murmuring, even as some of them murmur, and perished by the exterminator. Now all this befalls them typically, yet it was written for our admonition, to whom the consummations of the eons have attained. So that let him who is supposing he stands beware that he should not be falling. No trial has taken you except what is human. Now faithful is God, who will not be leaving you to be tried above what you are able, but together with the trial will be making the sequel also, to enable you to undergo it. And so Paul is citing what happened to disobedient Israelites, not to say that we are under the law like they were, because we're, as Paul wrote in Romans, we're freed from the law through Christ. We're justified by the death of the old humanity with Christ, and we're under no condemnation, as Paul says in Romans 8:1. But then why is Paul citing God's judgment of the disobedient Israelites as an analogy for us? Well, the principle is that if we're not living the way that the new creation, if we're not living in a way that reflects the characteristics of the new creation, if the acts of the flesh are out of control and causing us to live in a way that is seriously divergent from the kind of life that God brings believers into, God can take action to make those behaviors stop. Not as a form of punishment, not as a form of condemnation, but simply because there's something that needs to be put to an end. The deeds of the old humanity need to be put to an end. And in some cases, this can involve literal death of the Adamic body. like what we saw with that man in 1 Corinthians 5. In other cases, it could be forms of death, uh, as opposed to literal death. But what Paul is saying through this analogy with the Israelites is that God takes action when something is going contrary to our calling. God takes action on it. And verse 14, wherefore, my beloved, flee from idolatry. As to the prudent am I saying it. Judge you what I am averring. The cup of blessing which we are blessing, is it not the communion of the blood of Christ? The bread which we are breaking, is it not the communion of the body of Christ? For we who are many are one bread, one body, for we all are partaking of the one bread. Observe Israel according to the flesh. Are not those eating the sacrifices participants with the altar? What then am I averring? That an idol sacrifice is anything? Or that an idol is anything? But that which the nations are sacrificing, they are sacrificing to demons and not to God. Now I do not want you to become participants with the demons. You cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of demons. You cannot be partaking of the table of the Lord and the table of demons. Or are we provoking the Lord to jealousy? Not stronger than he are we. So, Paul wrote earlier in this epistle that when it comes to food sacrificed to idols, the issue is not the food in and of itself, because an idol doesn't do anything to the food. But if you're in the company of people who are eating food sacrificed to idols, your participation with them is a form of communion with the overarching spirituality of their gathering. And so, and it's analogous to how, like, earlier in this epistle, Paul was, talking about why it's really bad to engage in temple prostitution. Again, the issue there is not the sex in and of itself. It's the communion with unholy spirituality. And it's the same thing here with eating meals with people who sacrifice the food to idols. Verse 23, all is allowed me, but not all is expedient. All is allowed me, but not all is edifying. Let no one be seeking the welfare of himself, but that of another. Everything that is sold at the meat market be eating, examining nothing because of conscience. For the Lord's is the earth, and that which fills it. If any one of the unbelievers is inviting you, and you want to go, be eating everything that is placed before you, examining nothing because of conscience. Yet if anyone should be saying to you, this is a sacred sacrifice, do not eat, because of that one who divulges it, and conscience. Yet conscience, I am saying, not that of yourself, but that of another. For why is my freedom being decided by another's conscience? If I, with gratitude, am partaking, why am I being calumniated for that for which I am giving thanks? Then, whether you are eating or drinking, or anything you are doing, do all for the glory of God, and become not a stumbling block to Jews as well as to Greeks, and to the ecclesia of God, according as I also am pleasing in all things, not seeking my own expedience, but that of the many, that they may be saved. So if you're with a group of people who are unbelievers and there's no mention of the food being sacrificed to idols, then there's nothing to be concerned about. Because if they don't say it, then you're not in communion with any idol worship because the context of the gathering had no mention of it. But if it's made known that the food was sacrificed to idols, well, you're still allowed to eat it because Paul said, all is allowed me, but not all is expedient, not all is edifying. And if it's made known that food has been sacrificed to idols, and then you're eating the food with those idolaters, it creates confusion about your spiritual disposition, which could be a stumbling block uh, in the minds of other people. And that is, Paul is saying, it's not edifying, it's not helpful, it's not worth doing just because you're allowed to do it. So that concludes my discussion on chapter 10. I look forward to seeing you next time when we look at chapter 11.